A distressing breach of social etiquette at the prestigious annual Children's Hospital benefit auction has sparked conversation about the true meaning of class and dignity in modern society. The incident, which unfolded at the Ritz-Carlton's Grand Ballroom, began when a prominent socialite publicly mocked actor Keanu Reeves for his modest attire. "Does he even know how this works? This isn't a bargain sale," remarked the woman, her voice carrying across the room with deliberate precision. Her words, reflecting decades of experience in high society, would soon be answered by an extraordinary display of genuine grace that left the evening's wealthy patrons speechless. James Morton, executive director of the Beverly Hills Auction House, observed, "In my 30 years of organizing charity events, I've never seen such a powerful reminder that true class has nothing to do with designer labels or social status." Let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories of unexpected kindness. Tomorrow, we reveal another powerful story that challenges our assumptions about wealth and character. The evening had begun with all the familiar rhythms of high society charity events. Distinguished guests arrived in chauffeur-driven cars, greeted by the subtle clicks of photographers' cameras. Inside, the auction items were displayed with museum-like precision. Rare artifacts, exclusive experiences, and priceless artworks, each carefully curated to attract six-figure bids from the city's elite. "These events have their own unwritten rules," explains Margaret Whitmore, a veteran charity board member of 25 years. "There's an expected standard of conduct, a proper way to carry oneself." She pauses, smoothing her silk evening gown. When someone doesn't conform to these expectations, people notice. And notice they did. When Keanu Reeves entered through the main doors at 7:30 p.m., his simple black blazer and jeans created an immediate stir. The actor's preference for understated attire was well known, but in a room where men wore bespoke tuxedos and women draped themselves in designer gowns, his choice struck some as deliberately provocative. The woman, who would soon make headlines for her remarks, a prominent figure who had chaired numerous charity galas, sat at table 6, surrounded by her usual circle of socialites. "I watched her reaction when Keanu walked in," reveals Sarah Chen, a junior event coordinator. Her expression shifted from surprise to something closer to disdain. In our world, that subtle change speaks volumes. As the auctioneer prepared to present the evening's centerpiece, a Ming Dynasty vessel valued at over $200,000, the tension in the room was palpable. The artifact's proceeds were earmarked for the Children's Hospital's new trauma center, a fact that seemed lost amid the whispered commentary about Keanu's attire and perceived social faux pas. What happened next would challenge not just the evening's social hierarchy, but the very nature of charitable giving in high society. The socialite's voice cut through the polite murmur of conversation like a knife. "Does he even know how this works?" she declared, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "This isn't a bargain sale." Her companions tittered appreciatively, crystal glasses clinking as they shared knowing looks. The woman, impeccably dressed in a red Valentino gown and wearing what observers estimated to be over $400,000 in jewelry, had just committed what many would later describe as the evening's cardinal sin: confusing wealth with worth. "It was a shocking breach of etiquette," notes Dr. Eleanor Hammond, professor of sociology at UCLA and expert on philanthropic giving. In traditional high society, such public mockery would have been considered absolutely unthinkable, regardless of one's private opinions. The bidding began at $100,000. Keanu Reeves, standing quietly in his corner, observed the proceedings with characteristic calm. The socialite, perhaps emboldened by her earlier remarks, raised her paddle with practiced flourish. $150,000, she announced, her voice carrying a note of challenge. What followed was described by attendees as a masterclass in dignified response to provocation. Keanu raised his paddle, not with dramatic gesture, but with quiet certainty. $200,000, he stated simply. "You could have heard a pin drop," recalls James Morton, the auction house director. Here was a man who'd been publicly mocked for his appearance, responding not with anger or defensiveness, but with graceful action aligned perfectly with the evening's true purpose: helping children in need. The socialite's face tightened almost imperceptibly. 250,000, she countered, her voice slightly less steady. Again, Keanu's paddle rose. 300,000. The room watched, transfixed, as the bids climbed higher. But it wasn't just the amounts that held their attention. It was the stark contrast in demeanor between the two bidders. One grew increasingly flustered, while the other maintained a serene composure that spoke of something far more valuable than mere money. The final bid, $400,000 from Keanu Reeves, brought a hush over the room. The socialite, her face flushed, lowered her paddle in defeat. But what happened next transformed an already remarkable evening into something extraordinary. "I'd like to honor my bid," Keanu announced, approaching the podium, "but with a request." He paused, scanning the room with gentle eyes. "I ask that the artifact be auctioned again immediately, with all proceeds going to the Children's Hospital. Additionally, I'll match whatever amount it brings in during the second round." Patricia Montgomery, head of the hospital's fundraising committee for 15 years, dabbed at her eyes with a silk handkerchief. "In all my years of charity work, I've never witnessed such a selfless gesture." Here was someone who'd been mocked for his appearance, responding with a level of generosity that put all of us to shame. The socialite who had earlier derided him sat rigid in her chair, her diamonds seeming to lose their luster under the weight of the moment. Around her the room erupted in applause, not the polite, measured kind typically heard at such events, but genuine, heartfelt appreciation. "It was a masterful lesson in true class," observes Richard Bennett, a prominent philanthropist present that evening. Without a word of reproach, without any attempt at retaliation, he showed us all what genuine charity looks like. The contrast with earlier behavior was, well, it was devastating in the most graceful way possible. The second auction began immediately. This time, the energy in the room had transformed entirely. Paddles rose not in competition but in collaboration, as though the assembled guests finally remembered why they were really there. The Ming vessel, now a symbol of something far greater than its monetary value, garnered an additional $300,000 in bids. With Keanu's matching pledge, the evening's total contribution to the Children's Hospital reached an unprecedented $1 million, enough to fully fund the new trauma center's emergency response unit. Dr. Sarah Chen, chief of pediatric surgery at the hospital, puts this figure into perspective. "This means we can now provide critical care to an additional 1,500 children annually." What began as an uncomfortable social moment ended up literally saving lives. The impact extended far beyond the hospital's walls. Within days, the story began circulating through Beverly Hills' tight-knit philanthropic community, prompting what veteran fundraiser Thomas Harrison calls a seismic shift in charitable giving culture. Several longtime donors contacted me, Harrison reveals, questioning their own motivations for attending these events. One prominent society figure who asked to remain anonymous admitted she'd spent more time choosing her outfit than reading about the cause we were supporting. The socialite who had mocked Keanu made her own quiet amends. A week after the auction, hospital administrators received an anonymous donation matching the actor's contribution, accompanied by a note that read simply, "Humility learned late is better than not at all." The transformation was perhaps most visible at the next major charity event, held 2 weeks later at the Beverly Wilshire. The difference was remarkable, notes event coordinator Maria Santos. The focus had shifted entirely. People were asking about impact reports and hospital needs rather than discussing each other's attire or social status. 1 year later, the ripple effects of that evening continued to influence Los Angeles's philanthropic landscape. The Children's Hospital Trauma Center, now fully operational, has already served over 1,000 young patients. A plaque in its entrance hall reads simply, dedicated to those who remind us that true generosity comes from the heart, not the wallet. What we witnessed that night was more than just a generous donation, reflects Dr. Eleanor Hammond. It was a masterclass in handling social discourtesy with grace, and a powerful reminder that true class has nothing to do with designer labels or public status. The event has sparked what hospital administrators call the Reeves effect, a noticeable shift in how major donors approach charitable giving. Formal dress codes at fundraising events have relaxed, while requirements for donor education about supported causes have increased. Several long-standing society figures now insist on private tours of facilities they support before attending any fundraising events. Keanu Reeves himself never commented publicly on the incident. His only response, when approached by reporters leaving the auction, was characteristic in its simplicity. The Children's Hospital does incredible work. That's what matters. As for the Ming vessel that catalyzed this transformation, it now sits in the hospital's main lobby, donated anonymously by its second buyer. Beside it, a small card reads, "A reminder that our greatest possessions are the lessons we learn from others." Did this incident reveal more about our society's approach to charity than we'd care to admit? Has it truly changed how Beverly Hills's elite approach philanthropic giving, or will old habits eventually return? Share your thoughts below. If you believe in the power of quiet dignity to change lives, subscribe to our channel, because sometimes the most powerful statements are made without saying a word. This is Alex, signing off.